Hey everybody, so today I'm going to be going over a great website if you are a paramedic student or if you're just somebody that's interested in practicing your EKG skills. This website is called Skillstat.com and it has a free EKG practice simulator that I think is amazing. And I'm going to leave a link for it in the description in this video. I would highly recommend that you give it a try. It's extremely fun. You can go about, I need to turn off the sound for this. You can go about where you're learning different EKG rhythms, and this is where I've learned a lot about EKGs. So you can see here they have things like sinus rhythms, where they have a rhythm strip that goes forward. They talk about it a little bit. And we can see it's a sinus rhythm because we have a P wave that's upright. We have a QRS complex that's narrow and tight. The PR interval is less than 0.12 seconds. The what is it called? There's only one P wave, and the P waves match with the P waves, the QRSs match with the QRSs, and the P waves match with the QRS complexes as well. We can see here that the heart rate is 1 box, 2 box, 3 box, 4 boxes. So if we take 300 divided by 4, that's about 75 beats per minute. But if we look here, it's not exactly 75, so it's around a 72 for the heart rate. So it is a great practice simulator. We have all kinds of fun rhythms here, right? So we have things like sinus bradycardia, we have tachycardia, arrhythmia. I don't really care for the arrhythmia or the arrest, but that's why I talked about it in a previous video because I figured it would complement this one really well. We have different rhythms, like we can see a sinus rhythm with a PAC or a premature atrial complex, SVT, atrial fibrillation, which is just a garbled mess, and a irregularly irregular rhythm. We can't tell where the P wave is. We have atrial flutter with a saw blade. We have pace atrial, normal sinus rhythm with a first degree heart block. You can see that it has a prolonged PR interval here that's greater than 0.2 seconds or one big box. We have a second degree type 1 heart block, type 2, a 2 to 1 that I'm not too big of a fan of. There's a couple rhythms in here that I don't really care for too much, but overall, it's just such a great tool to practice your EKG rhythms. So I'm going to go ahead and mess around with it a little bit, and I would highly recommend to check out the link. I'm going to leave a link for it. It's a free EKG simulator, and they even have 12 leads now, which is so cool. And they also offer a couple classes as well. I've never really done any of the classes, but I have a huge respect for what they provided for the medical community by offering such a great practice tool. So if we look here, they have a game that's a lot of fun. So you can go ahead and start. So if you can see here, we have a couple P waves here. We can see that the QRS complex is less than 0.12 seconds. We have multiple P waves, but if we were to flip this around, it looks kind of like a sawtooth saw or a sawtooth blade, and we could cut a tree with it. So I'm going to go ahead and say that this is atrial flutter. And it's right. So we're going to go ahead and try again. And what's really cool about this one is we have multiple P waves here. They're distancing themselves away from the QRS complex. So the QRS complex is a little wide here, but not too significant. But there are multiple P waves. They are upright. But if we look, the P waves match with the P waves. And you can see here, it's kind of enveloped in this QRS complex. The QRS complexes match with the QRS complexes, but these don't match up. So I would think that this is a third degree heart block. Another one here, we can see that it is a paced ventricular rhythm. We can see the pacer spike here. The QRS complex is wide. We can't see a P wave, and the heart rate is about 80. Let's see, this one here, I've got no idea. I think it's a wandering pacemaker. Okay. I can tell because we have flattened P waves at some points. We have upright P waves. We have inverted P waves, so it's a little odd. We have a nice, narrow, tight QRS complex. We have just multi-directions whenever it comes to these P waves. It's very odd. And we have a QRS complex that's less than 0.12 seconds. The P wave, whenever it's there, it is less than 0.2 seconds. So I'm happy with that. This is an accelerated idioventricular rhythm. We can tell because the QRS complex is wide and we can't see a P wave. The heart rate is the dead giveaway. So for an idioventricular rhythm, it'd be between 20 to 40 beats per minute. The the accelerated idioventricular rhythm is going to have a more accelerated heart rate. And this last one right here, I'm going to say we can see that there is a Q wave or a P wave that separates slowly. I think this is a second degree, I think it's a type 1 heart block. And you have correctly identified 5, the total correct in 5 for a score of 5%. The average time to take to interpret each EKG is 12 seconds. You are skilled in EKG interpretation. So let's go ahead and see if that really was a second degree type 1 heart block. Let's see here. So if we look, we have the same thing where we have the P wave slowly spreading out over time with a narrow QRS complex, and then suddenly it resets and we have our P wave again. A second degree type 2, the P wave is always going to match up with the QRS complex, but we may have multiple P waves. So this is just a great website to use, guys, and it's free. That's the craziest thing. They have like the best 4-lead EKG practice, and it's free. So I'm going to leave a link to this exact thing in the description. Again, they even have like 12-lead practices as well. I haven't messed with it yet, but I need to mess with it. I think they also have an updated 4-lead practice that I haven't messed with either. But I use this a lot in medic school, and I would try to go as fast as I can. So it's really easy to be accurate if you take your time and you start to practice it. But now I'm going to try to go fast, and I think it's just going to become a guessing game, but it's a lot of fun, right? So I'm going to have to lock in a little bit. Let's see what we're looking at here. Okay, that's SVT. You can tell because it is a fast rhythm. It's 180 for the heart rate, so it's greater than 150. We can't notice a P wave. The QRS complexes are really nice and tight, and it's just kind of a mess. We would consider potential vagal maneuvers for a patient like this. Then if we were ALS, we would consider administering maybe adenosine. We would consider 6, 12, and 12, or some different agencies are now doing 12, 12, and then 6 at the end to max out at 30 milligrams. We can also consider synchronized cardioversion. You can consider administering sedative to calm down a patient. Right here, okay, we have flattened. This is a junctional rhythm. Yep. I can tell because it's a flattened P wave. It's a slow rate, which is what we'd expect from a junctional rhythm. Here we have a sinus bradycardia. We can tell because the P wave matches up with the QRS complex. It's upright. There's only one. It's less than 0.2 seconds. The QRS complex is nice and tight. It's 0.12 seconds or less. And the QRS is matched up with the QRS. The P waves match up with P waves. Okay, this is just a sinus rhythm. Easy. We have an upright P wave here. There's one P wave for every beat. The QRS complex is less than 0.12 seconds. The P waves match with the P waves. The QRS is matched with the QRSs. Once it becomes like exit block, arrhythmia, and arrest, I'm just going to start guessing kind of. So it may throw off my rhythm here. Okay, this is a 2-to-1, right? Yeah, where we have 2 P waves for a QRS complex. It's really hard to talk about it while playing this game, guys. But we have 2 P waves for every 1 QRS complex. It's a little wide, but not too wide. Right here, this is a sinus rhythm again. Yep. I should have talked about that. That's just second degree type 1. Yep. We can see here that we have the P wave that slowly spreads out, where it starts to spread out. Then we get an occasional 2 P waves as the heart kind of resets. It jumps a QRS complex, and then it goes back into its regular rhythm. Okay, here we have a second degree type 2. We can tell because the P wave matches with the QRS complex, but occasionally we'll have multiple beats here. QRS complex is nice and tight. We have our P waves upright. Sometimes we'll have occasional more than multiple P waves, but we always have a P wave that matches with the QRS complex. If you guys are confused at all with what I'm saying, please check out my EKG practice video section as I start to mess up now. This is a PAC, normal sinus rhythm with PAC. Yeah. I mean, you got to give me some hard rhythms. Come on. But we can tell here we have an upright P wave. We have a narrow, tight QRS complex. We have a PACs here, or premature atrial complexes, and they're an occasional beat, right? Here we have that's weird. This is a wandering pacemaker. We can tell because we have a weird abnormality where some P waves are upright, some are inverted. Occasionally, we may even have a flat P wave. Along with our QRS complex, there's only one P wave for every QRS complex. The QRSs matches with the QRSs, the P waves match with the P waves. So that leads me to believe that this is a wandering pacemaker. Okay, what the heck? This is one of these 3. Is this sinus arrhythmia? Is this a sinus arrest, a sinus block? I'm always bad when it comes to these. I'm throwing out guesses, which isn't good. Okay, it's a sinus arrest. I'm just going to guess with these, and it's going to throw off my percentage correct. It's no good. So this is a sinus arrest, and I need to watch my previous video on it. This is a paced ventricular rhythm. We can see we have a pacer spike here, and those are always going to throw off people. We have a wide ventricular rhythm. We can't see a P wave, so very simple. This is one of these three rhythms, right? So I'm just going to guess here. Not good. We have a sinus exit block, and I need to go back to one of my previous videos. I just don't know these three rhythms well. They're just abnormal rhythms. This is a idioventricular rhythm. We can see we have a wide QRS complex. We don't have a P wave. It's flattened here. And the heart rate to dead giveaway because it's between 20 to 40 beats per minute. Otherwise, if it was higher, we consider an accelerated idioventricular rhythm. Here we can see this is a junctional rhythm. It's a little bit fast though, so we're going to say it's accelerated junctional because we have an inverted P wave. Okay, nice tight QRS complex. This is atrial fibrillation. We can see here because it's just nonsense. We have these weird abnormal P waves. We have our QRS complex, which is nice and tight. However, the QRS complexes do not match up with each other. The P waves are indistinguishable. Some may argue, oh, well, isn't that a P wave? Sure, I guess, but look at all of this nonsense here. So we really can't tell if that's actually a P wave or if it's more so inverted with the T wave. So very difficult to distinguish. That's why it's an irregularly irregular rhythm. Here's another one. This is sinus tachycardia. We can tell because we can still visualize the P wave. The dead giveaway is a heart rate at 138 beats per minute. We have QRS complex that's nice and tight. We have our T wave right here. Can I get one more? This is atrial flutter. Yep. If I flip it around, it will act as a saw blade, and I can cut a tree with it. And this is fine. That's a sinus rhythm with a first degree heart block. So, excellent. You have correctly identified 18 total correct and 21 for a total score of blah, 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 blah. The average time to take to interpret an EKG is 3 seconds. Honestly, I could do a lot faster if I wasn't recording and talking. But you are a skilled EKG interpreter. We got that in one take. If I did extremely bad, or if I was going to get these sinus rhythms, arrhythmia, sinus exit block, and sinus arrest constantly, I was definitely going to cut the video. So I'm so glad that we got some good rhythms. But these are the three I just struggle with so much, honestly. But again, huge shout out to Skillstat.com. It's amazing that they offer this service for free. We love you so much. This is such a kind thing to give to the medical community. You can also mute it. It's very loud if you don't mute it. And it goes for each beat, right? And then the guy, whenever you get it right, he yells, right. But overall, it's just such an amazing tool to have. And I always recommend it for paramedic students or just people who are interested in EMS. So I'm going to leave a link to it in the video description again. Thank you guys so much for watching. There's my one cut for the video. Special thanks to our channel members, Nathan Smith and Stephen Richards. We love you guys so much. Thank you for supporting the channel. If you do want to support this channel, consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. All of that really helps with the algorithm a lot. You can join our Discord. It's free, and we can talk of just about anything. If you want to talk about EMS, fire, I'm down to talk about whatever. It's a lot of fun. We talk every day, so I really enjoy it, and all my community members. If you want to consider being a channel member, it helps out the channel a lot. But if you do not have the funds, don't worry about it. But with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. See ya.